Well, greetings. This Future Trends Forum session recording is a special one for me because this one represents our 10-year anniversary meeting. We started the Future Trends Forum in 2016, and we've been meeting weekly ever since. We now have nearly 500 recordings on YouTube. We have nearly 10,000 members of our community, and we continue to explore the future of higher education through conversation. And we do this with fantastic guests and our splendid Future Trends Forum community. So this session is a tribute to all of that work and a way to honor that community. So in terms of content, we relaxed, we had fun, but we also talked about three different things. One was we tried to explore what value we get in the Future Trends Forum, what that gives us. The second was we explored some different ways that the program may move forward in the next decade, different programs, different content types, and so on. And then at the end, we talked about where we see higher education going in the next 10 years. And I have to say, that last bit had more thought, more vision, more heart than in most discussions I see about the future of higher education. We did that on the fly. So watch this session, enjoy, leave comments below, and thank you everyone for your support. Onward to the next decade. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Well, congratulations to everybody. This is an unusual session, and I should make sure that the recording is on just for my own purposes, so I get to look back on this with fondness. Welcome everybody to the 10-year anniversary of the Future Trends Forum. This is, I'm sure you all know how the forum works. You know what we're about. But this is a very special event that we get to celebrate 10 years of doing this. I just want to begin in the usual way, just to quickly thank some of our supporters. So everyone on Patreon, the people there have been doing, among other things, yeoman work in answering my posts and questions and comments. Because over on Patreon, I'm constantly asking people, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? Or take a look at this. And they help contribute to making sure that we keep everything going. The forum is open. The forum is free. It always has been. And we've been doing this without any commercial support. And so I appreciate everyone at Patreon doing that. And I appreciate the folks at NiserNet. You've all heard me say this, but that's a really unusual group. They do two things that not everybody does, not every state has. They help all their colleges and universities in that big state of New York get access to high-speed broadband, which is non-trivial. I mean, parts of that state still are in the wrong side of the digital divide. But they also have great meetings with each other. They've put together wonderful groups like the New York Six to do professional development and networking. So they do networking in every sense. We're really grateful to them. I just also want to ask for a round of applause for the hardworking Wesson Radomski. Wesson has been helping us keep everything running. They have been doing slideshows for us. They've been doing tech support when we've gone from two different technologies. And Wesson has also helped keep me sane, which is no small feat. So just a round of applause for the awesome Wesson. And Wesson, if you can, in the chat, why don't you toss the link to your fiber project so that people can learn more about that, because that's pretty tremendous. I also just want to thank all of you. It's actually pretty easy to run an interview program if it's just you interviewing somebody else. You see this on radio, you see a lot of podcasts of this, and they have one person and a guest, or two interviewers and a guest. That's really clean and straightforward. What we've been doing is something very, very different. This has been community-based. We have had, at any given session, dozens or hundreds of people all putting their minds together in an act of collective cognition, in a way of trying to feel and think and make sense together. And Shauna is here to show us not just humans, but also one creature. Shauna, who is that? Who is that? That looks like almost like a rabbit.
This is ouch, stop biting me. One of my 8 Angora rabbits.
Oh, a beautiful, beautiful animal. Hello, hello.
This is Enyo. Enyo.
Enyo, hello. Oh, look at that face. Oh, look at that. Hello. And then he was like, who are all these people staring at me? What a hello. Sorry to put you on the spot, Sean.
Oh,
I
that's
couldn't
okay. That's
resist.
okay.
But
I
this
like
is
them because they're fun.
this is part of who we are and what we've been doing here. That we're not merely collections of blank faces on a screen, that all these screens are windows into our lives that we've put together. So we can look back and see who someone is, what they're doing, what they're about. That's why I think the connections here are so special. I mean, partly we get a much better conversation. If it was just me talking to Shauna, I would ask Shauna some questions, then I might run out. But all of you can ask so many more questions from so many more positions with so many different backgrounds and ideas. That makes this truly special and perhaps unique. Um, and I just love all the other connections we get to make. People have put out job offers and gotten hired through the Future Trends Forum. We've seen publishers and writers connect. We've seen people become friends. And of course, we've seen terrible, terrible jokes, as well as some good ones as well. So I want to thank all of you for being wonderful, being the Future Trends Forum community. Literally, my hat's off to you. And beyond this, I just want to I want to say a few words more, just to reflect back, and then I want to ask you all some questions. Um, I mean, thinking we started back in February of 2016, which is quite a different time in all kinds of ways, and it's important to know that we started from nothing and from worse. We began this without any institutional affiliation. Uh, we did this with the support of the wonderful Steve Gottlieb from Shindig, who helped produce our whole effort, who got us going, who let us use his amazing technology. And we did that from scratch. We got a few people, then more people, and then we kept advancing this week after week, month after month, year after year. So we started from nothing. And also, when I say worse than nothing, there was just terrible stuff out there in the world. There are so many bad webinars, and there still are to this day. Just last week I was in a webinar where they turned off the chat box, but didn't tell the presenters. So the presenters kept saying, "Well, say something in the chat, or I'll put something in the chat, or hello chat," and there's nothing to see. Um, all of you have been through webinars with all kinds of horrible stuff. In fact, I'm just wondering if you could in the chat just put an example of an awful webinar thing that you experienced so far. Something that was awful. Yeah, I can put it in one right now. Up the nose cameras, or people who read in a monotonous tone of voice that makes them sound like they are a robot dying and draining. Oh, death by PowerPoint. Absolutely, Richard. Man, I mean, so one of the things I'm really glad that we've been able to do is we have almost completely had no slides. Yeah, that we've been able to do this entirely by conversation. And Mark Wilson puts down the reading the slides out loud as though people couldn't do that themselves. Kathy Davidson mentioned Zoom bombing. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. That was one of the great things about Shindig was it really controlled that. Um, and Katie points out the lack of testing. And this is still an issue where people are just not able to get the basics down to make sure their camera is on and their light is on, the microphone works. Renee points out folks yelling at their housemates. Yeah, yeah. Um, I think right now the Zoom technology has gotten better at being able to mute background noises. Our great friend Tom Hames, wonderful thinker, writer, and guest, is in a house where they have a lot of dogs, and we can't hear them at all when they're barking like mad because it's good at this. Oh, Roxanne mentions one of the most terrible things, a crime against humanity, which is asking for questions and not taking any. I mean, I've seen this happen so many times, especially, an event will go, so we'll save questions at the end. They're 30 seconds and they won't, and then they won't answer them. It's just awful. Um, and Phil mentions, yeah, leave no time for questions because the moderator drones on and on. You've got to manage that better. Um, Oh, and Mark Evanfield mentions a prepped webinar they tried to make look live. Oh God, that's the uncanny valley right there. I agree. I agree completely. Ed mentions a tutorial showing the second, more personal monitor. Oops. Yep, yep. Brent says he had one where a chainsaw was running at a participant's location and we couldn't mute it. Oh, good Lord. Oh, man. Oh, it's awful. And then Shelby points out something which it's not just funny, but also dead serious, which is talking about active learning, but lecturing to death. I mean, I think some people do bad webinars honestly. Um, that is, they really believe in lectures. They really believe in a passive audience, and they structure things that way. But it's worse when they say they're not going to do that, when it's going to be interactive, and they stop that. Um, Echo, yeah, Phil. Yeah, we still have technical issues. Um, Kathy points out a Zoom meeting where some guy showed up after a run without any visible clothing on. Oh dear. Oh dear. Brian Rockwell mentions a presenter got frozen with her audio at max, playing what could have been great reggae. Oh man. Oh, that's awful. Oh, that's awful. Um, Brent, we have several cats in the area. I'm waiting for them to appear, but of course I can't make that happen. I am completely at their will. Um, and then Gretchen Moffat points out this will be short, just about 10 minutes, and then drones on for an hour. Yeah, there's something special about academics where we just can't quite get this right. Um, we have to be better at that. Um, or Stephen points out the production side, planning interaction only to find out the webinar host needed to preload everything days in advance. Yeah, yeah. Um, and Phil Katz points out he'll take a good online lecture over a let's pretend we're interactive session. Um, Not answering the questions that people actually put in is pretty awful. Yeah. Renee says that when an instructional designer gets stuck in the weeds and doesn't cover what's promised, yeah, there's a kind of organization that we've got to do. And so I hope the future transform has been a blow against all of that. That we've tried to produce good quality. I almost hesitate to call these webinars. These are live video conversations instead. And I hope we made all that work. We've done a few more things we can point out. In 10 years on our YouTube channel, we now have 468 recordings on our way to 500, which is kind of astonishing to think about. That's a lot of time. That's a lot of content. I really hope that this becomes research fodder for some enterprising student or faculty member or staff member, because we covered an incredible amount of ground. I mean, I've been trying to update our topics list, and we've got, I mean, just running down this history of higher education, high flex teaching, K through 12, leadership, learning management systems, libraries, credentials, alternatives to credentials, COVID-19, accreditation, admissions, um, humanities as a field, scenario exercises, sexual harassment, staffing, state universities, lots and lots on teaching, virtual reality, Web 3.0, web tools, extended reality. I mean, and tons more. Um, we've really just covered a huge amount of ground. Um, and of course, Oxane put AI. Yeah, absolutely. Michael Belrabe, I'm so glad you could join us. Says Hap Vesser once told me that he was collecting the three biggest lies told at MLA conventions. Number one was loved your panel. Number two was I'm so sorry I missed your panel. What's the third? Oh, I know that one. I'll be brief. Yeah. I had a wonderful professor as an undergraduate who became a friend of mine, who every we had a unique assignment structure in a literature class. Every week we had to write one paper, and it had to be no more than 320 words. And that just boiled down all of the chaff that was in my writing at that time. And that really, really, really helped a lot. Um, Sarah San Gregorio and Phil Katz came on similar minds here. This is not a question so much as a comment. And as Phil puts it, I have a statement about my own work. Yeah, absolutely. Roger, we're going to come back to that question. That's a great one. You anticipated me very nicely. I'm looking forward to that. Um, we also have right now, in terms of the total number of people involved in the forum, uh, any given forum session, we have as few as 12 people and as many as 850. Um, but it's not the same people week after week. Um, one number I have comes from our two email announcement lists. They're effectively one, but we have two different populations for them. And the total number of people in those lists is 9,109. And uh, I'm very, very pleased with this number because that number doesn't count people who quit, people who signed off, people who didn't want to receive that anymore. And every week we add some, and some people leave. So that 9,109 people are all people who want to be involved, people who want to be committed to this community. Um, that's a lot of folks. That's bigger than some colleges and universities. Um, it's wonderful. Um, I just want to add a couple more things. Mark Corbett Wilson's classic line, if I had more time, I would have written a shorter paper. Yep. Um, I want to ask all of you in the chat. I'm trying to figure out a way to put this that doesn't sound self-aggrandizing, although this is a good day to be self-aggrandizing. If you could, in the chat, really quickly, put a word or two just saying what the value is for the forum for you. What value does it have for you? Is it the different guests? Is it a particular topic? Is it my cats? No. Is it the chance to communicate? What is, just give me one or a couple of words, um, because I want to get a sense of how this works for you all. Um, some sense of where we're going. Excellent, Michael. A rediscovery of passions, Shelby, especially based on where you are, Shelby. I'm so glad to hear that. Creative ideas. Oh, great, 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 great. Big ideas, a breath of fresh air. Excellent, Mark. Intellectual community, Roger. Thank you. Thank you. And Ed, I'm so glad you find this helpful. Just personally, I always struggle with being too melancholy. I'm really glad that we get that. Gretchen points ideas. And John says community. I'm so glad. And Kathy says variety, topics, and inspiration. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you so much. Catherine Crawford says an open style of respectful engagement. Uh, I've actually gotten a few criticisms about that in the past, or people who have said that we are too open, or that we don't, we don't forbid some people. Um, and Heather says an agnostic space to discuss realities of higher ed evolution. Well chosen word, Heather. Thank you. Sarah says being among people who get it. Yeah, I hope so. I think so. Bethany Simunich. Hello, Bethany. I'm so glad. I was literally an hour ago telling people about the Clover Report. Just literally an hour ago. So you're there in my mind. An open discussion where the questions take the discussion. This is what's so great. So we have an hour to wander in an almost Taoist way, and this proceeds organically. Um, Mark Corbett Wilson, those are the future trends. I hope so. Uh, and Phil Katz, thank you. Having people who are much more likely to take a technology first approach than I am. So we've been using the technology, but also thinking about it and pushing it in new directions. Brent says that he loves hearing from a diverse group of people. I'm really glad to hear that. Phil Lingard says a sense of issues exercising involving academics. Thank you. Well, that's really good. Katie Beal says that she's an instructional designer who's switched from corporate L&D, learning design, to higher education instructional design, learning so much about the true education side. Ah, I'm so glad to hear that, Katie. I'm really glad to hear that. That's one of the side effects I was really hoping that people would take away from this. Um, I think, Katie, we cover so much ground. We've got presidents, librarians, technologists, professors of all kinds, students, staff members in all fields. That this is a kind of like, thick description of higher ed, or the series of passes through it in so many ways. A lot of instructional designers here. And Roxanne, Thank you. Thank you. That means a lot to me. Shelia says she only started attending recently, but love the respect here within the community. Thank you. I really want people to be welcome. I don't want this to be a hostile or dangerous place. Um, Brian says the topic's the inspiration, the only webinar with this vibe and communal interaction. I think so, Brian. I haven't found one yet. I've been trying to. Um, and oh, I'm so glad your colleague enjoys this. Thank you. Please tell him or her hello from us. And Mark Corbett Wilson resurrects that terrible myth that beards are the central part of the Future Trends Forum. I have to deny that at all costs. No, it's true. Um, Madeline says that she gets ideas for projects of staying connected in the higher community when we usually feel disconnected, especially in rural communities. Yeah, Madeline, I'm so glad to hear you say that. I began doing this, so probably the first half of this in rural Vermont. And so it was often a challenge to get the infrastructure right, and to get bandwidth, a perpetual struggle. But I'm really glad to hear it, Madeline. We need to have more of that. Um, and Katie, if you want to pile in more on the in the chat, please, we'd love to hear from your experience on that. Um, I'm so glad. This is so useful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing and for saying all of this. And hello to folks I didn't get to greet before. My good friend and my guru of the physical campus, Michael Haggins. Good to see you here. Um, and Stephen, we haven't yet built a yarn beard. I actually thought about getting some of those printouts that people can staple to their faces or just attach to them. Um, I also just do want to mention one thing that's even crazier about this is all the webinar windows that you see people's lives. And I've seen different people in different situations, including being in cars. We've had guests who are in airports or on trains. And I've done this myself from multiple countries and from multiple venues. Um, what I'd like to ask all of you now, and again, we're about 44 of you right now, so please feel free to use your microphone if you like. What I'd like to ask is, looking ahead, what would you like us to do here on the forum? And to prep you for that, I'd like you to think about first the values that you just revealed, but also what you see elsewhere. If there's anything that we should be doing that we're not doing right now, but also think about format. See, we've done this in a few different ways. We've done, our usual session is me plus a guest and all of you. But we've done some variations on this. We've had multiple guests, sometimes all at once, sometimes in this series. We've done some on-site locations, some live shows from conferences and from other venues. We've done some scenario exercises where we role play a situation. We've got one of those scheduled actually coming up. We've done workshops where we try to work through a particular topic, and we've even done some kind of intro 101s on different fields. We've also done some live responses to ongoing situations. So we've had, here in the US, we've had some interesting challenges over the past 10 years. We've done a series of sessions on COVID, both directly on COVID, but also on its implications for teaching and learning in different ways. We had several sessions on political events. I'm curious, are there any of these you'd like us to do more of? Anything you'd like us to see more of? Anything you'd like us to experiment with? Um, and Roger and Shelby say Future Trends meetup, an on-site, that would be great. I would love to do this. I've been trying to organize this in a few ways, but it's hard to get the right venue for that. Maybe I could add this to a big conference like AEC&U or EDUCAUSE or ALA and just have a big meetup for that. Um, if any of you are involved in an event at that scale, please let me know. It'd be great to try and make one of those things work. Steve Crawford says some of the sessions he found most memorable were the role play future scenarios, especially the ones before the election about January 2025 and beyond. Yeah, Stephen, I feel grimly pleased with myself that in one of those scenarios we anticipated Trump winning a plurality of the popular vote. I'm glad to hear it. We'll try and do more of those. He also took the Institute for the Future Essentials workshop because of this forum. Oh, I'm so glad to hear it. I'm so glad to hear it. Phil Katz wants to do a flash mob in my classroom. Yeah, you can do that. That would be great. Robin, fire away.
Hi, I was delighted to see this session come up. So yeah, so very grateful and love a lot of things I'm seeing in the chat. One of the things that I'm wondering about, not necessarily different in format. I think a number
Mhm.
of the formats that you've hosted, I think, are just generally productive. So I don't have a suggestion that way, but I think in terms of some of the, employ a phrase, wicked problems
Mm.
that are at play right now in higher education,
Mhm.
that if we could maybe consider some of the sides, not just both sidesing, in fact, to get away from both sidesing, but to, in fact, that might help us to be more critical thinkers. That blend of critique and advocacy. And I only bring up two things, and I'm trying to get away from both sidesing. So I said this and that. I mean, like,
That's
there's
okay.
more to it. Like, for example, um, there is an emerging discussion around, has been around AI. And again, there's still a lot of both sidesing there, right? Where you have people, well, here's how it could be productive in the classroom versus why I avoid it in the classroom. And there's even some sort of teaching and learning, right? Some sort of faculty development, educational development approaches there, which I think are interesting. But what I don't see a lot of is, in terms of even thinking about our own workflows and so forth, where are the neuroscientists? Where are the education scholars saying this is where doing your own thinking is actually especially necessary and helpful? Here's where taking a quote unquote shortcut might be helpful, right? Where you see
Hmm.
some of the
Hmm.
recent postings where people are looking essentially at an equivalent of a sort of Bloom's hierarchy and
Hmm.
saying, Inara Scott, I think of at Oregon State University, kind of thinking about here are things where you have to, where you're just letting AI do the work versus things where you have to be more involved. Uh, but I want to not just say what you could do, right? But again, we have expertise, right? What do our brains need? What do we need to keep being, right? And
Hmm.
developing and learning
Hmm.
ourselves
Oh, I
in our
love
work
this.
with it. So similar kinds of discussions, I guess.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Um, if I understand it correctly. So to bring in an expert in one slice of one of these wicked problems and help us think it through in a pragmatic way using our intellectual firepower to bring that to bear. Could you give me, I'm putting you on the spot now. I mean, could you give me an example from another wicked problem?
So not just, so take I out of
I
it.
mean, AI is huge, and
Oh, sure.
we're on that. But for example, and maybe I've got this wrong, but thinking about the financial sustainability of higher ed is a real problem.
Mhm.
And we've had several economists, which, by the way, is one of the few times we've had slides because economists can't do anything without a graph. But having them, they talk through problems of enrollment, problems of funding, discount rates. Would that be good to have to have us think through, how a campus finance, system works, and the stresses they're under?
I would say yes, insofar as, from my own perspective, I can't speak for others, but that taking making higher education as multidimensional as possible right now. I've really enjoyed thinking about, again, sort of teaching and learning and how to work with students, how to support student success, how to support educators for a long time. But I'm finding myself needing to make the pivot to how does this operate in a big gangly organization like an R1 institution, a community
Yeah,
college, a this, the
yeah.
that, and the other, and to not understand the forces at play,
Hmm.
not only as an individual educator puts me, I feel, in a more vulnerable position, but it also makes me less able to advocate in those communities of practice or even in shared governance. So to your point, I think, yes, there's value in
Do you
thinking
think,
through some of those other perspectives that bear on what it means to actually deliver this thing called higher ed.
mm, mm. That's quite fundamental. Um, we did an exercise a couple months ago where we tried to rethink a university from scratch, um, assuming AI, and it wasn't a good prompt because people got really excited about AI and they really worked on it, but we didn't get around to actually redesigning a university, which is largely my fault. I didn't frame it correctly. Um, but I'm wondering if maybe we could come up with either solutions to some of these wicked problems together, or at least come up with ways by which we can address them. Now, this is great, Robin. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know if you could hear me typing. Friends, I have a very crunchy keyboard, a DOS keyboard that I love. But it's like a typewriter sound. So I want to make sure as I'm typing that it doesn't overwhelm. Um, we had again, you can if I think all of you know the forum, so you know that we're welcoming to hear multiple people. If you want to add more more thoughts, the chat. I'm sorry, the chat already has a whole bunch of these. Roger wants more educational research. You mean like science of learning, Roger? That kind of thing?
Yeah, that would be good. I guess there are all these theories out there of this helps learning or this helps this other thing. I'm grounded in learning science and cognitive psychology. I'm like, that's great. Well, where's the statistics? Where's the numbers? So I guess I like the quantitative and qualitative would
Yeah.
be nice.
Thank you. Oh, that's absolutely great. Gretchen, Robin, let me rephrase that. Robin, Gretchen loves your idea of tackling various wicked problems. Brent, take care. I'm glad to see you. Brian Rockwell has a whole bunch of topics in mind: assessment, regular and substantial interaction, online learning, educational technology. There's a lot more to explore. This is quite true. Um, and Sarah San Gregorio mentions micro-credentialing. That's true. I We've done a couple of sessions on this before, and it would be a good idea to return to it. Thank you. And Roger, I'm glad we made you happy at Boston. Um, Glad we could do that. Um, Shelby asked us to think about the impact of AI on academic publishing. That's a really of AI on academic publishing. Um, that's a really great topic. We did host Kevin Guthrie from Ithaca and JSTOR, who gave us a bit on this. We could use some more. Um, Shauna mentions FSCI. It would be good to hear more from that. Thank you. We have Mark mentions Ian McGilchrist. Oh, good choice. Good choice. Um, and we had more comments. Oh my gosh, this is great. Heather Durrell mentions University of Virginia just had an AI symposium where Natasha Henney pitched on a skeptics framework. Yeah. There's some good folks there. That would be good. Um, and Sarah, you can, in business school, I understand completely. I can imagine what you're doing. Shauna, what's the course you're teaching that suggests that covers the wicked problem idea?
Sorry,
Take
my
your time.
PC is very, very slow. So the wicked problem I'm focused on is how do we manage AI within academia and all of the tensions related to do we use it, do we not use it? If we do use it, how do we use it? How do we govern it? What kind of policies do we develop for it? Where is it leading higher education down the road? How do we redefine learning and authorship and rigor and academic literacy and like it just blows the whole AI it is rupturing our concept of higher
Yeah.
ed. And so the course that I'm teaching is it's focused on the different ways that we as humans can collaborate with AI, and there's multiple tiers. The lowest of which is allowing AI to do simple work for us, like writing emails or fixing our grammar or
Mhm.
basically just lower level cognitive tasks. The highest end of it is using it as a dialogic partner and as a source of epistemic scaffolding. So introducing new
Mm.
ideas
Mm.
into our internal dialogue that are adjacent to where our actual understanding is, and helping to incorporate them into increasingly higher levels of and broader levels of systemic thought. And then there's a few areas in between that, but the purpose is not only to highlight and codify those tiers, but also to talk about the different biases that are introduced in that human AI collaboration, such as abdicating judgment, or those
Yeah.
higher tiers assuming shared fluency. So there's a list of biases that we need to become increasingly aware of, so that we can be aware, can prevent them in ourselves, but also teach. This is all eminently teachable, and so we teach it to students. As part of that, here's how you do critical thinking with AI. Here are the things that you need to be aware of and watch out for in terms of biases that you could fall, like premature convergence is huge. And then it also instructs in countermeasures for how do you either avoid those biases or counteract them when you start to fall prey to them, or recognize that
Now
you're
so is your syllabus available?
yes.
I'd love to see that. If I think a lot of people would love to see that. That sounds like a great class.
Sure, I'm happy to provide. I'll send it after this.
I'm teaching my higher ed and education, higher ed and AI class this fall, and I have to redesign it completely. So I'm always looking for this. That sounds great. Um, Thank you. We have more comments. Shelby Rosengarten says we need more sessions on finances for higher ed and give some examples of different fees and why they're opaque. Phil Lingard has a particular request, and I this moves me, and I would appreciate anybody's thoughts on how to do this right. He says that he appreciates the way that we've handled contentious issues, but he was wondering if the forum could have a specific session on the pain and fear so many academics are now feeling about the challenges facing higher education in the context of the current administration. Um, I want to do that, um, and I want to do it right, um, and I want to do it in a supportive way. Um, so if Phil, if you want to add anything more about how you would like to see that, or if anybody else would like to add notes about that, please let me do that. I'm not a mental health professional. Um, I just like to learn from people, and I want to make sure people have the ability to do that. Um, Dermot mentions a really, really important thing. I've been trying to set up a show on this, the 3-year undergrad degree, how we handle that, which is a really, really important point. It's a great idea that may finally have had its time. Um, there's a lot of discussion about AI criticism, and so we can definitely do more sessions on that as well. Um, let's see. And more people here. Phil Katz offers, as usual, a wise thought. I hope we can balance some of these learning-focused and operations-focused discussions with reminders about the missions of higher education, human and social, not just economic. Here, Phil. Peter Whitehouse asks, how do we plan for collapse? Think bioregionally, understand the virtues of pessimism. Whoops, sorry, my chat just skipped a little bit. Um, Learning as a spiritual activity. Uh, Peter, that's a really, really great question. We've had one speaker on this before, one of the Dark Mountain founders, who was really great on this. Um, I've invited a few other people, including the author of Hospicing Modernity. I'm waiting to hear back. Um, if there's anybody else you think that would be good on this, please let me know. Um, And if you want, my publisher would be sad if I didn't say it. My previous book, University is on Fire, discusses this. And one of my next books will focus on that more in detail. Um, Robin Pappas says that she's already spoken, obviously, Oh, it's fine. We're always good to hear from you. But perhaps a series that brings back some of the seminal guests pre-COVID to understand the state of the state. So bring back Audrey Waters, for example. Yeah. Oh, that's a really good idea. Thank you, Robin. Peter Whitehouse wants the power of transdisciplinarity in intergenerational learning to address the meta crisis. This is good stuff. This is really good stuff. Thank you, Michael. Um, Roger mentions agentic AI. I would love to do a session just on this, Roger. If there's somebody that is good, that would be a good guest, please let me know. I've got a few folks in mind that I can approach, but I would love to hear anyone else. That would be good. Uh, Kathy Davidson mentions that she just did a blog post on Haystack. All right, shout out for Haystack. But ends with a simple assignment where students can see for themselves how confirmation bias is built into AI. Excellent, excellent. Uh, Mark Corbett Wilson offers a different take on politics, wants us to think about education in the context of the military, industrial, congressional, intelligence, media, academic think. Thank you. And thank you for the link, Kathy. Christian Moffat wants us to hear more about serving neurodiverse students. Indeed. And Gretchen, if there's another scholar on that field that you'd recommend, please let us know. And I'd be glad to bring Jose back. He's a real treat. Then Shelia says that she's a media designer for online higher ed courses. My team attended a virtual conference last week that left us all feeling pretty down. There's a huge benefit for students whose courses have unique supplemental media instead of traditional lecture, but we're having trouble with that being recognized when those large conferences show examples that are inaccessible, really low quality, or lean heavily on AI. Would love a session that connects to this. Wow, this is a deep one, Shelia. So would we describe this as developing and valuing human-generated media for online classes? And if you want, just pop open your mic. I'd love to hear more from that.
Yeah, hi Brian.
Hi.
We do a lot with like interactive content for our courses. We've made labs that are replacing in-person labs for higher ed courses where students would have to come to campus for their online course. And so there's not really a lot of I guess resources for that. There's not a lot of groups that are doing this. And then when we attend these conferences that, we literally ask like, hey, have you tested this program and interactive activity to work with like a screen reader and assistive technologies? They basically responded of, we don't know if it's accessible or not. And that's something we
Mm-hmm.
put a lot of
Mm-hmm.
time into, and
Mm-hmm.
it's just completely ignored. So I'd love a
Mm.
broader perspective on that and just someone who understands really.
We had a session last September with Diana Teisinger on accessibility. I don't know if you saw that one. Let me put a link to it in the chat. Um, uh, she did a great introduction to some key issues um, around accessibility, specifically in terms of a accessibility law that is unfolding in just a few months in April. Um, and I can't pull it up right now. I'll see if I can find it. Um, but uh, but accessibility is a vital subject, and I'm really glad you brought this up. Um, yeah, I would love to. Let me think about this. I would love to have a session about this. Um, and we've had more comments and more questions. Mark Lewis, hello, Mark. As we're considering the impact of state regulations on AI augmentation, recent New York state legislation limits the quote displacement of employees and transfer of existing duties, unquote. But will this prevent evolution of academic roles via AI augmentation? Oh, that's a really great topic, Mark. Thank you, thank you. Again, if you can think of somebody who is especially good on this, that would be great. David Orr. Oh, Peter, I would love to have David Orr. He would be a great guest. Uh, Roxanne, speaking of which, asked us to address climate challenges. I would love to do that. I'm having a hard time getting any academic interest in climate action right now. But I think this is vital and essential for us to do. Roger, I'd love to see that paper once you get it done. Heather Durrell asked us to work towards a process-based mindset with a growth mindset, while also including experiential educational opportunities. Yeah, Heather, Robin's question is the one I would ask. I would love to hear more about that. And there's some nice discussion back and forth about micro-credentialing of 3-year degrees. Very good. And Mark Corbett Wilson reminds us of Rebecca Pope Rourke and Lee Skeller Bissette's recent book about neurodiversity, which is really, really great. Philip, if there's anybody you can recommend for transgenerational learning, that would be good. Katie Bishi, I'm sorry, Beal, sorry, Katie. So there are lots of conversations around people moving for more authentic experiences and works. Now that everyone can access AI, the slop is high. Looking for authentic work in the age of AI. And how to do that with AI. That is a great topic indeed. Heather Millar, congratulations on the publication. Just published a study on how the pandemic shifted perceptions of traditional versus online degrees. Heather, we'll have to find that. That sounds great. If you could, I would love to, if you could send me a copy, I'll see if I can get a from Taylor and Francis. And in fact, that might be something that we should discuss. We also have Weston pointing out a link to a session, and it'll probably autoplay, so forgive me if the music comes out. Yes, that's the session. Thank you. Good catch. You got it. So that's one of our sessions about accessibility. We also had our good friend Michael Johnson on talking from Benetech about this. Lifelong learning. Yeah, Roxanne, I would love to see a way to do this. If we could find a good guest for this, or we could do a session, a kind of workshop working through that. Shelby points out that accessibility tasks are piling up. Yeah, yeah. And Roxanne says she was the sole advocate for years. Accessibility is, as we saw, is a burning topic as disabilities mount up and as the recognition and support needs grow. But this is essential for us to be able to do more of and to do better. Every college and university I talk to, their accessibility office is just overwhelmed. And they are not resourced enough and they need a lot more support. And Terry is under contract with the University of Toronto Press. Congratulations. Oh, Terry, that book sounds amazing. I would love to learn more about that. And when it comes out, Terry, we're gonna have to bring you as a guest. So I'm telling you this now. We'd love to bring you in for that. Um, I I'm so glad to hear it, Terry. That's just great. Well, this is wonderful. You guys have just given me a roadmap for years of projects and sessions that we can hold. Let me ask you a different question now, and this is one that I believe Roger asked earlier, and that is if we could look forward a bit to our topic, to the topic of higher education itself. Looking ahead 10 years. So looking ahead to 2036, what are you all anticipating? What would higher ed be like in 2036? I mean, we could obviously say Roxanne Riskin will be awesome. We can obviously say Michael Higgins will be there to teach us about campus architecture. We can obviously say Kathy Davidson will inspire and teach us about education. Yes, that's all good. But I meant, what would it look like? What would the academic sector, the post-secondary sector, look like? What are you thinking now based on everything you've been seeing?
Yeah, I since I prompted the question, I had this in my mind. Originally, I was kind of pessimistic. All these things are going to fall apart, but I'm kind of looking through this rough period where we're, you know, universal basic income, as thinking about it as a post-labor economy, right? As
Mm,
AI and
mm,
robotics come along, you're going to have people, more and more people won't be able to support themselves just by selling their labor. So I'm thinking of it as everyone retires, right? You have enough fun, like universal high income. So we do that. And then I'm thinking people are still going to want to go to school just because they want to improve and learn and, take philosophy courses. And then even if everyone has plenty of money, there's still going to be a hierarchy of status. So some people are going
Mm,
to
mm,
want to, show off their whatever. So I'm
hmm
thinking of higher education in terms of that. So I'm again nerding out on the math part, but looking at what the different motivations are, and then trying to put it in a Monte Carlo simulation and do some Bayesian analysis,
mm,
seeing, oh, if we
yeah.
do this, it's going to influence people who go to 2-year schools versus 4-year schools, first generation students versus others. So there's all these different factors that I'm trying to figure out, but I don't know. Hopefully that's interesting to people.
That's tremendously interesting to me. I mean, everything you
Oh,
said sounds great. And running a simulation for that sounds wonderful. Do you know the book and the idea of fully automated luxury communism?
no, I
You
will
should,
have to look that up.
you should just Google that. It's
Okay.
I think the title is somewhat tongue in cheek, but the idea is along the lines of you're talking about. If we can automate
Hmm.
most of what we call the economy, and then what do we do next? And the book's answer is we have to basically, make that into a society of, they say luxury. I mean, it's plenitude, right? So not just a basic survival thing, but that everyone can live, excellent lives in ways without so much of that hierarchy. I'm not saying this to endorse it. I'm saying this is one of
Yeah.
the ideas.
Well, I'm endorsing it, so well, I don't know about this.
The Roger pattern. I like that.
It's like it
Yeah,
reminds me of Star Trek. If you ever watched that,
of
people are still
course.
exploring and doing things. They don't have to worry about paying the bills, though.
Well, that's some of the dreams. You could think
I'll get
about.
back to you, man. I'll write something up and then I'll shoot you an email.
Well, I have this Titanic book project, which addresses this. You think about Star Trek, you think about the wonderful series of novels by the Scott science fiction writer Ian Banks called the Culture series, which has a post-scarcity world. There's a and Kathy Davidson helpfully put a link to the book in fully luxury communism automated in the chat, so that's there. Um, I love this vision, Roger. Let's follow up. I'd be happy to talk, more and more about this. Phil Katz, as always, offers us a good distinction between higher education and colleges and universities. So which are not necessarily the same. So Phil Katz, I would turn that around and ask you, what are some of the alternative systems and institutions that might emerge? Sarah San Gregorio hopes that higher ed is still around. Shelby thinks that face-to-face will be prominent. My students want to be with other people, the ones who lived through COVID. Gretchen Moffat sees that with their students too. I wonder how long that'll last. Once the generation that has grown up with COVID, ages further. Stephen Crawford says he's been in a negative place. He fears that higher education institutions will shrink to the point that many of us will be retired or working outside of higher education as the jobs will become fewer. You know me, Stephen. This is something I obsess over. That's what peak higher ed is about, and I think this is kind of the memento mori that we need to bear in mind as we try to redesign higher education, is to avoid that negative outcome from happening. It is all too possible. Um, and Phil, that's a good name for a band. I agree. Phil Lingard says learning content will be delivered by machines, with academics delivering discursive mentoring tutorials, a kind of flipped classroom with AI. Yeah, that's one good vision. Peter Whitehouse says a higher ed will fall to deeper and broader learning. The ivory tower is detoxed. What a great phrase. And collapses towards becoming more grounded. Metaphor is king and queen. What a vision. What a vision. We also have Roxanne says that well-being and mental health will be integrated into all courses, with instructors, student well-being normalized, with human and AI chatbots available 24/7 for academic stress. All stress is experienced by students in higher education. Student financial issues will hopefully be a thing of the past. What a great vision there, Roxanne. Thank you. And you, of course, somebody who is an expert in this. Brian Rockwell has an optimistic idea. The resurgence of interest in critical thinking, creativity, and lifelong learning. But the pessimist in him expects continuous battles over the big topics of education, the value of liberal arts, role of AI, face-to-face versus online learning. But the futurist in him wants to work toward the optimistic future and ready ourselves for the pessimistic future. The wise man. Thank you, Ryan. And Phil Katz offers a classic Karl Marx quote that might fit such a post-scarcity world. I can hunt in the morning, fish in the afternoon, rear cattle in the evening, criticize after dinner, just as I have in mind. Heather Durrell says, or Dorrell, I'm sorry, if it's just 10 years ahead, I think it's going to be research specific. I think we'll still need new things to feed the machine. It'll have to become more apprentice based and experiential. Thank you, Heather. That's another rich vision. Mark gives us a scarier vision that if the state controls all your income and assets, you can be canceled with a flip of a switch. Yes, quite true. Mark Lewis, Mark, it's really good to see you here, by the way. It says Title II, they have an associate director of 4 staff dedicated to accessibility for online courses. Plus, our entire team is involved in accessibility remediation for specific accommodations, as well as quality assurance for course developments. Sounds like you're doing it right. I hope that's at scale for what you need. And then Kathy Davidson says we have Project 2025 and right-wing commentators. Yeah. By the way, this is something in 2024. We did a months-long online reading of Project 2025. Some of the indicators I've seen say that's about 60% realized now. So the resurgence of the right wing and its impact on higher ed, that seems hard to deny at this point. Thank you, Kathy. Shana Pote says she predicts higher education will likely be smaller, more stratified, more assessment driven. Elite institutions will likely remain stable and research intensive. Many regional institutions will contract and merge or specialize due to demographic financial pressure. Modular and skills-based credential pathways will expand, tied more directly to employers than traditional degrees, kind of like health insurance. The most significant shift will be in assessment. With AI destabilizing written coursework, institutions will need to shift strategies, perhaps relying more oral defense, live reasoning, simulations, and competency validation, though scaling is an issue. I'd love to hear, Shauna, more about your thinking about assessment and in terms of simulation, if you get a chance later on, either by chat or by email. Because we're almost out of time. And Shelby says, I wish there was a way to talk about assessment that didn't just spiral out of control. It is sprawly. It is sprawly indeed. Robin, please say hi to EDUCAUSE for us. Our good friends there. Thank you for coming and sharing so much. Stephen Crawford says online education may have to be prepared to deliver online courses to smartphones as computer prices continue to rise due to chip shortages. Interesting point, Stephen. This may heavily impact community college students. Yeah, I'm going to feel old here. I was going to say for about 20 years, I've been recommending that higher education become mobile phone first in its design. And we're still not there yet. Peter Whitehouse recommends that we develop symbiotic wisdom grounded by a deeper bioethics. Let's learn from trees. Peter, I think you and I could just hang out, just the two of us. I was going to recommend, thinking about Richard Powers' great novel, The Overstory, or about Donna Haraway's last couple of books. Philip points out that learning is a social activity for the majority of the population. This reality will have to be incorporated into the design of learning to deliver the skills humans need to exist in an AI world. Friends, what you have just done in the past 10 minutes is offer richer, more challenging, more interesting thinking about the future of higher ed than I've seen just about anywhere. I think it's testimony to the fact that not only are you all brilliant, that's clearly the case, but also thinking together has this power. We have to wrap up because it's just about the end of the hour. Phil, I'm working on getting more presidents and more trustees in. And Peter Whitehouse, we should definitely talk. Friends, we have 10 years ahead. We have so many options and possibilities. Please, if you haven't already, send me a note. I'll put my email in the chat. You're probably tired of emails from me, but just in case you don't have it to hand. Any other thoughts or ideas you have? If there are any technologies that we should explore here on the forum, If there are, any other ideas that haven't come up, I know that the French have this wonderful phrase, esprit d'escalier. It comes from the idea that, you go to a meeting, you have a discussion, and as you leave, as you go down a staircase away from it, an idea hits you, right? This is where asynchronous learning comes in for me. Please send me your esprit d'escalier story or thought. I would love to hear from you. We have sessions scheduled for the next 3 months, and I'm aiming to schedule for the rest of the year. So there's a lot to take a look at. You can go to the forum website, forum.futureofeducation.us, and you can see a lot more. Friends, I'll just say it one more time. Thank you all for being with us and making this community work. There's a lot of love in my heart for all of you, and a lot of love that you've all put together for this. Please, everybody, be safe. Take care of yourselves. If you're in the northern storm-reflected areas, be warm and dry. And we'll see you next time online. Take care. Bye-bye.